Hi, everyone. I'm John Ma, a partner and head of the North American investment team at Igneo Infrastructure Partners. Igneo Infrastructure Partners was renamed or rebranded earlier this year from First Sentier Investors, which remains our parent company. But we've created the Igneo brand to highlight our long-term direct infrastructure investing team. The last 2 years, logistics infrastructure has really faced a lot of upheaval, largely due to COVID-related impacts. And what it's really exposed is that a lot of the globalized freight infrastructure logistics chain is highly fragmented. You have port operators, you have shippers, you have rail operators, chassis providers, trucking companies, all of which need to come together to run an efficient logistics and infrastructure supply chain. The trends have just impacted by COVID. We've experienced a lot of congestion and delays and shortages across various parts of the logistics supply chain. And I think it's only highlighted for customers, for shippers even more, just how interdependent these various players are. But I think it's also made shippers and beneficial cargo owners realize just how critical a reliable, dependable transportation infrastructure supply chain is to getting goods to market, where they're needed. And so I think one of the long-term outgrowths of the experience of the last 2 years is that people will start to focus not just on low-cost transportation supply chains, but importantly, very reliable ones. So I think people will start to look at having some redundancy built into the system, more storage and equipment available throughout the system. I think there's a number of things, lessons learned that people will take from the experience over the last 2 years. I think for well-positioned ports, airports, and high value-added reliable rail operators, can provide good level of service, they should benefit from the experience over the last 2 years. Again, as customers, as shippers, really focus on who can provide good, dependable, value-added service, not necessarily the lowest cost operator that can lead to some of these unfortunate issues of congestion and severe delays where you end up with empty shelves, for instance. And so by good value, one example just to talk about is we're an investor in a short line railroad company, Patriot Rail. And Patriot Rail has talked about for a long time, even before COVID, just how they hope their customers see the value they provide. They really focus on very safe operations and high value added to their customers. They pride themselves in having really reliable service. And that contrasts to some of the larger national class 1 players in the rail industry, where if you pick up the paper today, there's many instances or stories out there of with their drive for efficiency and lower their operating ratio, there have been instances where their service by their own admission among the class 1 railroads have fallen short of their goals. And again, so for short line operators, high quality ones like Patriot, we think there's a real opportunity over the long term. And it plays into this broader theme, as I mentioned, of given the tough experience for many over the last 2 years, people should value more highly good, dependable, reliable service. It sounds very basic and very fundamental, but I think there's been some really hard lessons that people have experienced over the last 2 years that should, again, put a greater premium on good service going forward. Yeah, just to speak more broadly within ports and airports, speaking of ports, for instance, again, the logistics supply chain is highly fragmented. You've got ports right now that are suffering severe congestion, a lot of pressure on them from regulators, from customers saying, why are the ports so congested? There are a lot of headlines in recent months about the backlog of ships in West Coast ports, for instance, but it's a very complex problem. The port operators themselves are not single actors in this. They're dependent on railroad service operators, chassis providers, warehousing companies, and truckers, just again, a whole variety of players to make the system work. And so I think hopefully we'll see going forward greater coordination between all these parties, and really kind of building in some buffer into the system. You could see the development of, and we're seeing some of it now, of basically flexible flex space. So off port, near port warehousing or lay down space to manage situations where you have overflow cargo and hopefully smooth out the efficiency of the overall system. Well, at Igneo, we're very long-term infrastructure investors. And so we really believe in good value over the long term requires good alignment with stakeholders. And that clearly includes employees. And for certain of our companies, certainly union represented employees. We think they have a lot to bring to the table in terms of skill level and safety standards and reliability. And so we, like many other fund managers out there, do subscribe to a responsible contractor policy. And we think it's important, broadly speaking, across our business to work really closely with key stakeholders to the business. And another thing that COVID's taught us over the last couple of years, just given temporary shortfalls in staffing across the economy, is just how valuable workers are, even for essential asset-based infrastructure, to make it go, to make it run efficiently. So we're very committed to working closely in collaboration with workers across all of our businesses. We focus with our management team from our board governance level in making sure there's good employee relations, that you've had good workforce development programs, and a number of things, again, to create what in our minds are long-term alignment and value creation over the long haul. If you'd like to learn more or have any additional questions, I'd invite you to visit our new website that was launched in coordination with the launch of our new brand. The website is igneoip.com, so igneoip.com. We've got a number of interesting content and case studies on the website, and we invite you to come take a look. Thank you.